Hey everybody, my name is Tate Emmons, and we're excited to partner with Singing News TV to bring you a brand new series called Legends. It's 10 episodes and 10 legends. We'll have an inside look on some of the living legends of Southern gospel music. You'll hear their stories directly from them, and we might even sing a song together. So subscribe to Singing News TV and check out Legends today. Hey everybody, my name is Tate Emmons, and welcome to Singing News TV, where today we'll be spending time with one of the living legends of Southern gospel music. Their stories are fascinating, their songs never get old, and their contributions have been priceless. I made my first trip to the National Quartet Convention in September of 2022, and this is where I met this legend. I knew when I looked in his face and then I looked in his eyes that this man had a wonderful story that couldn't be told in one conversation. I remember wanting to learn more, and today that's exactly what we'll be doing as we salute and honor a legend in our field, Mr. Nick Bruno. Hey everybody, my name is Tate Emmons, and welcome to this episode of Legends, and today we have Brother Nick Bruno with us. Brother Nick, thank you so much that you took the time today and let us honor you. Now, we want to go over your history and all the great things that you've done, and we want to know this. Tell us about your journey getting into gospel music.
Actually, I was born and raised in New York City, Staten Island to be exact. And I went away to Bible college, and I had a good friend that I met there. His name was Eddie Spuler. And so one weekend, Eddie invited me to go to his home for the weekend. Well, the Bible college was in Green Lane, Pennsylvania, and his home was in Philadelphia, about a 45-minute drive. So we went to Eddie's home for the weekend to hang out, and it came on Saturday afternoon, and we couldn't figure out what to do. So Eddie suggested, why don't we go down to Town Hall in downtown Philadelphia? They're having a quartet concert. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was like Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, right? That's a quartet.
Right.
Yeah. And but it was a gospel quartet program. So we went to this program. On the program that night was the Eastman Quartet, the Couriers Quartet, the Weatherford Quartet, and the Blackwood Brothers. To backstep just a little bit, my dad always wanted me to be a piano player. So he got me hooked up with a really good piano teacher, Bob Pasquicello, a nice Italian man. And he taught me piano. So I took from him. And so now I'm in Bible college, and I have this talent that the Lord gave me, and I didn't really know how to use it or what to do with it. And so I'm at this quartet concert, and I was in awe. I mean, literally, Tate, I sat there all night like that with my mouth open. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And so that moment in time was very important for me, because that is when I decided that that's what the Lord wanted me to do.
So you didn't really have a history of gospel music, didn't really know what it was till then?
That's correct, yeah. I didn't have a clue what a Southern Gospel Quartet was. Didn't know. But I found out real quick.
Yes, sir, and that's where you found your love for it.
That's right.
How long did it take you from that time to join a group?
Okay, so you fast forward a few months, and we had a campground, and one of the quartets that sang at the campground, this was after I happened to be there, was the Keystone Quartet.
Right.
And it just happened shortly after this. And so it wound up that they lost their piano player, and someone mentioned my name. I got the job. And so I was in the Keystone Quartet officially, and the only problem was that was a full-time group. So I had to leave Bible college to join the Keystone Quartet. And of course my dad was pretty upset over that. But he later told me I made the right decision.
Yes, sir.
I was glad to hear that. So that was my start, Keystone Quartet.
I don't really know how long you stayed with the Keystone Quartet, but then you joined another group called the Rebels, and there was a lot of big artists and a lot of great singers that came from the Rebels. Tell us about your time with them.
So I'm with the Keystone Quartet, and this was a later version of the Keystone Quartet. We had actually moved our headquarters to Buffalo, New York, because we were doing a lot of singing in Canada and up north. And so Buffalo, New York became the Rebels Quartet at a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And so I attended the concert because I just wanted to, enjoy the night. Well, what happened was the quartets were up in the mezzanine, up in the stairs in the hotel. They were all singing, having fun, And the piano player for the Rebels was Jimmy Taylor, excellent musician. Well, he had already turned in his notice, and he was eyeballing different piano players to take his place. So we're up there in this hotel. My wife and I went to see them, and they said, "Nick, come on, sit down, you join in." So I sat down, played a couple of songs with all the different ones, And the next thing you know, I got a call. Now this would be interesting, you'll like this part. I got a call from the Rebels about a few days later. They were in Cleveland, Ohio, and that's not too far from Buffalo. And they said, "We want you to come down here and talk to us. We might want to have you join our group," which I did. We drove down there. And so now we're sitting in this hotel restaurant with me and all the Rebels. Cece was there. And they started talking about the job, and how much I would have to have. And I forget what the price, this was a long time ago. I think maybe like $200 a week, something like that. Well, we're sitting there talking, and the maitre d' comes to the table. He said, "Is there anyone here named Nick Bruno?" I said, I'm Nick Bruno." He said, "Mr. Bruno, you have a phone call." I thought, wow. So I go to the phone in the hallway there. It's Joe Mascale. You know who Joe Mascale is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Joe says, "Nick, I'm thinking about leaving the Imperials. And I know you're a Northern boy just like me. How'd you like to have the job?" I said, "Well, Joe, I'm sitting here in a hotel being offered a job with the Rebels." He said, "You don't want to go with the Rebels, you want to go with the Imperials. How much are they paying you?" And I gave him the figure, which I think maybe was like 200. I don't know. He said, "We'll pay you $250." I said, "Well, okay, well, I'll get back to you." So I went back to the table. And I said, "That was Joe Mascale with the Imperials. He offered me $250. $250? I said, okay, $275. So this is a true story.
Became a bidding game, kind of.
Yeah. And so it wasn't 5 minutes, the maitre d' comes back again. He said, "You have another phone call." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." So I go back to the phone, it's Joe Mascale. He said, "What'd they offer you?" I said, $275. $325. Well, he offered the price again. And so, bottom line was I took the job with the Rebels, but I think if I would have waited for 2 more phone calls, I could have made a partner.
If you could have waited.
I could have made me a partner, or maybe the manager.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, that was interesting. But anyway, I took the job with the Rebels, and we moved from Buffalo to Florida.
Yes, sir.
And I wasn't with the Rebels really that long, and I had an offer to join Coy Cook and the Senators,
Okay.
and I took that job too.
Yes, sir.
And both of those jobs were short-lived because with Coy Cook and the Senators, we were appearing in Nashville
Right.
at the War Memorial. And J.D. and the Stamps were there also. And Kenny Hicks was a relative of J.D., I think a cousin or something. Kenny Hicks was the bass player. And by now he was with the Stamps, and he was also in the Rebels. So he kept telling J.D. about this great piano player. And so when I got there, I was on a tour with the Senators. I had been gone from home already 2 weeks. And J.D. called me on the bus and offered me a job right there on
I mean, everybody wanted Nick Bruno.
He offered, I mean, there was no way I could turn it down, you know. And so I had to turn in my notice to the senators, and then I did and worked my 2 weeks. And by then, the Stamps were in California, finishing a tour. So I finished my 2 weeks with the senators, which is now 4 weeks. I've been gone. And I flew from Detroit, Michigan to Los Angeles and got on the Stamps bus. And they still had 2 more weeks to finish their tour. So I was gone from home like 6 weeks. It's amazing Cece welcomed me home, you know. But
Still
anyway,
accepted you in.
yeah. So I'm on the Stamps bus. I hadn't been there a week or so. And they said, well, you need to know we just signed with Elvis. That was a good move.
Good move, smart move.
Yeah. And so that was the story of how I got to get hooked up with Elvis Presley.
And I want to stop there. So you joined the Stamps, J.D. Sumner and the Stamps, and they just signed with Elvis. Do you have any experiences with traveling with Elvis and the Stamps that you'd be willing to tell?
Oh, I can tell you some stories.
Please tell us some.
Okay. Well, here's one that you'll find interesting. We were at Graceland, and it was 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which that's when we were active, because that lifestyle there, the shows were 12 o'clock, you know, and you get used to working really late and you sleep in the day, you know. So it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all bored. Elvis says, I know what we're going to do. So he says, follow me, boys. And when we start out the door, he said, Bruno, you grab my cape right there. If the colonel sees me without my cape on, I'll be dead. So I grab his cape. We go out in the backyard. It's total dark. He got 2 golf carts out of the garage. So now I'm sitting behind Elvis like this. I'm holding his cape around the neck so he doesn't get a draft. And we got 2 golf carts, 4 guys in each golf cart. And he got 2 boxes of Roman candles out of the garage. And each golf cart took 1 box of Roman candles. And we took off, turned off all the lights, took off in the dark shooting at each other. True story. Ducking like that. Now, I didn't have a Roman candle. I never touched a Roman candle. That's important to remember. All I did was hold Elvis' cape around his neck. Before you know it, one of the Roman candle things got stuck under the porch of the house. Sets Graceland on fire. The back porch. Smoke billowing in it. Fire department comes, the police department comes. Then finally they put the thing out. Backstory. Several years later, my relatives, my mom's sisters all come down to visit me in Nashville. We want to go to Memphis and see Elvis Mansion. So okay, got a van and we hauled this whole crew down there to Graceland. And we're walking around, I'm showing them all stuff, you know. We come around out there by the back porch. You ever been there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right where that back porch is. And one of my aunts was walking right behind me. I said, look, right there is where we set the house on fire. Right there is where the Roman candle landed. And there was one of those guides that were there. And she said, you are the one that set the house on fire. I said, no, I didn't have it. But anyway,
You were holding the cape.
I'm the one that got blamed for it. And I never did anything.
Yes, sir.
So that was crazy. Do you want to hear one more Elvis story?
Yes, I want to hear another Elvis story, please.
Okay. One night we're up in the suite. I've got two Elvis stories. The one you already know, but you never heard this one. So the Elvis's bodyguards come to us, the staffs. They said, "Look, we've heard that there's going to be a threat on Elvis's life, so everybody be on your toes." It was a big joke, but we didn't know it. So we're up in the suite. I'm standing right by a couch, and it's about 30 feet or so straight that way to the door of the suite. Over here, about 6 or 8 feet, is a wet bar. Donnie Sumner is standing behind the wet bar. I'm just setting the scene for you. All of a sudden, the door busts open. Two guys come barging in the suite with guns. Boom, 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 boom. Elvis goes, ugh, hits the floor. J.D. Sumner dives on top of Elvis. Well, he knew right away it was a joke because he could feel Elvis laughing. But we didn't know it was a joke. Brave Nick Bruno, I dove behind the couch. And anyway, Donnie was behind the bar, and they had those large cans of juice. I guess you use them to mix drinks or something. Any big cans like that, tomato juice, orange juice, whatever. He was throwing the cans at the guys, dribbling and throwing the cans at these guys. Well, the whole thing felt like it took an hour. It probably couldn't have been about 30 seconds for the whole shooting match to be over. We all came up for air and we're looking around, and by then we knew it was a joke, you know. I looked over at Donnie and he was white as that paper. I said, "Donnie, what's wrong?" He called me over there. I walked behind the bar. There was one can of juice left. Behind that can of juice was a loaded .45 pistol. Donnie said if he would have seen that pistol, he would have killed those guys. So that was just a typical evening for being with Elvis.
Well, praise God that didn't happen.
Oh, yes. Amen.
Now, Brother Nick, you've told some funny stories with Elvis and some very interesting things that I can't wait for everybody to hear. But when did you realize that the life with being in the Stamps and Elvis, that wasn't what you wanted to live?
Okay, well, one night Elvis called me over to the piano, which was really my main job, playing for him in the suite. And he wanted J.D. Sumner to sing "Walk That Lonesome Road," which, if you know that song, it's a bass singing way low. And he wanted everyone to hear J.D. Sumner. So I started playing, and J.D. was right here looking, just a little spinny piano. J.D. was here singing this way. Elvis was right next to J.D. A couple of the guys were standing right here singing back up, singing. And I'm playing "Walk That Lonesome Road." Pretty soon the crowd started pressing in. There was no microphone, so they had a hard time hearing. And they were pressing in, and they were pressing in on me. And so they were leaning on me, pressing, and I kept playing, and the next thing you know, I'm playing like this here, and they're pressing me down. Well, the song ended, and everybody kind of eased up a little bit. And I looked over here on this shoulder, Frank Sinatra. I looked on this shoulder, Dean Martin. And pressing me on top of my head, Sammy Davis Jr. So I was playing "Walk That Lonesome Road" while the Rat Pack was leaning on me.
Wow.
And it's funny how things happen, but in that instant of time, that moment when they looked and I realized who that was, is when I realized that that's not what I was called to do. I wasn't called to be there in that circle. God didn't give me my talent and anoint my playing to be doing that. So that was the moment in time that I decided to resign from the Stamps and get out of that world.
Yes, sir. Well, how about this? Stay right where you are. We're going to take just a small break, and we'll be right back with this episode of Legends.
Turning Point Ministries presents the National Quartet Convention, returning to a premier vacation destination, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and returning to a center stage. Headlining the main stage are Greater Vision, The Hoppers, Mark Trammell Quartet, Jim and Melissa Brady, Triumphant, Ernie Haas and Signature Sound, Collingsworth Family, the Gaither Vocal Band, Tribute, and many others, plus gospel music's largest marketplace. Many spectacular daytime showcases, including the Gaither Homecoming Sing-Along, the Singing News Fan Awards, the SGMA Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and keynote speakers like Dr. Robert Jeffress and Dr. David Jeremiah. Reserve your seats today. Visit nqconline.com or call 800-846-8499.
Dreaming of an unforgettable getaway filled with music, faith, and breathtaking ocean views? Join Tate Emmons aboard the Harmony at Sea 2026 cruise. Setting sail February 23rd through the 28th on the Carnival Freedom. We're heading to Celebration Key, Nassau, and the stunning Half Moon Cay. A trip that's part paradise, part praise, and all unforgettable. Alongside Tate Emmons, enjoy the Browders, the Allens, Right Road Quartet, Danny Funderburk, Heart to Heart, the Seiler Family, and more. Be sure to register with Tate Emmons so you can be part of his special onboard events and exclusive experiences. Expect live concerts, powerful worship, artist meet and greets, and plenty of fun at sea. Whether you're soaking up the sun or singing under the stars, this is a trip you don't want to miss. Cabins are limited, so book now. Visit www.praise.events or call 865-278-3681 and sign up with Tate Emmons to set sail for a week of music, inspiration, and adventure. Harmony at Sea 2026, where faith, music, and fun come together.
Hey everybody, my name is Tate Emmons, and welcome back to this episode of Legends. And today we have Brother Nick Bruno. So you left the Stamps, and soon enough you joined a small little group called the Kingsmen. Now, how did you go from the Stamps to the Kingsmen?
Well, when I left the Stamps, I had a good friend, Don Baldwin, the manager of the Couriers Quartet, had just opened a recording studio in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And so he offered me a position to manage the studio, which I did. We moved back to Pennsylvania. While I was there, just a few months, he said, Nick, the Kingsmen are having a big homecoming something or other in Asheville. Would you like to go down there? I said, oh, sure, yeah. So we hopped in his car and take off for Asheville. And so we show up at Asheville at this singing, and Eldridge Fox called me aside, and he said, our piano player, Charles Abbey, is turned in his notice. Would you like to play for the Kingsmen? I said, would I?
Right.
So I still hadn't lost that desire to be on the road and be with a good quartet. And that was a good quartet.
What was the lineup?
Johnny Perrick, Jim Hamill, Eldridge Fox, Ray Dean Reese.
And I'd say that's a lineup.
That was a good quartet. Good
Yes,
quartet. And so here's an interesting story too. Am I telling too many stories?
Go ahead.
So I took a job with the Kingsmen. We moved to Asheville. So I hadn't been there just maybe 2 weeks or so. And we were rehearsing in Eldridge Fox's piano store. He owned a piano store. And so he actually closed for business, and we all hung out there. We were having a rehearsal because we were getting ready to record an album in Gadsden, Alabama. So we did this one song called When I Wake Up to Sleep No More. And so Jim Hamill, if you know Jim, he's very lovable, but he has this brrr about him, you know. And he looks at me and he said, now Bruno, this quartet's not from New York. He said, I don't want no New York intro. He said, I want a good Southern gospel intro for this great song here. I said, well, okay, you know, so I played an intro. That's the worst thing I ever heard. He said, that's awful. He said, let's take a break. So we took a break. Everybody went over by the coffee machine, having coffee and donuts, which the Kingsmen were very good at, eating coffee and donuts. And so I stayed at the piano, because now I'm living in terror. I mean, what am I gonna play, you know? So I played boo-doo-doo-doo-doo, now that didn't work, boo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I played about 8 or 10 different things. None of them were working. Just out of, I don't know why I did it. I went back and played the very first thing that I played. Jim Hamill yells across the room, 50 feet away. That's what I'm looking for right there.
And it was the same thing?
Yeah, it was exactly the same intro.
Did you ever tell him that?
Oh yeah, many times. But anyway, that got on the album, Big and Live.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now that was a big album.
Oh Lord.
Do you think that might have been your favorite album that you did with the Kingsmen, or do you have another favorite?
That was pretty close to the favorite. Chattanooga Live
That was
was
good.
pretty good too. Yeah, and Live naturally was a great album. Of course, I produced that. I wasn't playing on it, but that had excuses on it. Shake hands with a pork. Whoa, baby.
Well, talking about your producing, I hate to switch things so quick, but talking about your producing, you produced the song Excuses, and I want to tell everybody this, that the song Excuses went #1 for 10 months in the Singing News charts. And I don't think it was 10 months in a row, because the Hemp Hills one month went #1 with He's Still Working on Me. But Excuses was #1 for 10 months.
Yeah.
That's huge. Tell us about producing that song.
Well, we did that. It was just another song on the album, you know. But when they did that, I knew right then, as soon as little Ernie stepped up to the microphone and said, "He didn't even shake my hand," phew, that was it, baby. I knew that was a hit. And, you know, the rest is history, as they say.
So after you left the Kingsmen, you produced Excuses. And you also produced another song called Beulah Land. I know a lot of people know that song. Tell us about Beulah Land.
Well, I had already left the Kingsmen and made the decision to go into full-time producing. And of course, Squire Parsons had been with the Kingsmen, and he was also on his own now. So it was just natural for both of us to kind of hook up, you know. And so I became his producer. And the first album that we did at West Sound in Asheville, North Carolina, Eddie Swan and Richard McBrayer, they had the studio. We recorded this one song called Beulah Land. At the moment in time, I had no idea that it was going to be such an impactful song. But we recorded it, and, you know, history proves that it's one of the greatest songs ever.
That's right.
In Southern gospel music. And so I had the honor of producing and recording the first cut. And so now, if you fast forward, I think I have that album here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is the album right here that I did for Squire. And so now if you fast forward quite a few years, out on my Bruno, I call it the Bruno Ranch, we have a barn in the back. It's really just a building. I have all my CDs, anything, keyboards, music stuff, all stored back there. And I think it was 2010, I believe that's the right year. We had a tornado come through. And it wound up that the tornado lifted the barn and moved it about 60 feet and then dropped it. So now there's just junk everywhere. The insurance company brought out one of those giant tanks, 30 feet long. And it became my job to go through all that stuff, sift it out, and what couldn't be saved, throw it out. And I'm sitting on a bucket, and I'm going through things like this, just cleaning things off, and grabbing another thing. And all the while that I'm doing that, there's a thing over here in a branch like this, just doing like this, just flapping. A yellow piece of paper, just flapping. I could see it, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I'm doing it, cleaning it. Pretty soon, out of, I guess, frustration, I just reached over and grabbed it. And it was the chart from that original session of Beulah Land.
And we have that right now.
You do?
So I'll grab this over here.
Yep,
So was this it?
that's it. This is the chart from the original cut of Beulah Land.
Wow.
And you can tell that I did it because I spelled Beulah wrong.
Yes, sir.
And so I think, my personal opinion, you might disagree, I believe that in all of that storm, I think the Heavenly Father saved that for me.
Yes, sir.
That's my opinion.
I believe that.
Yeah. Squire wanted it back, but I wouldn't give it to him.
So you've produced a lot of songs, a lot of hit songs, but lately you've kind of did a lot of background stuff, a lot of writing and different things. What are you doing now?
Well, right now, believe it or not, I am still doing some of what I've done. Not quite to the level that I've done, but I have my office here at Day Wind, and I try to do some hymn projects for people. And mostly right now, I'm teaching, mentoring people, helping artists get on the right track.
Right.
I write an article in the Singing News every month, which I hear helps a lot of people. So I'm just trying to share what the Lord has helped me to learn.
Yes, sir. And you're recognized as a legend throughout the Southern gospel industry because lately, and it's kind of ironic how it happened, but you were just nominated in the Southern Gospel Hall of Fame. That is amazing. Tell us about how you found out you were going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, we had Gerald Wolfe and his hymn sing came to my home church, Hillcrest Baptist in Lebanon, Tennessee. And Cece and I went just as spectators. I later found out that Troy Peach, the music director, and several others already knew what was going to happen, and the dirty rats didn't tell me. But what happened was, I was sitting there. It had to be about 1,200 people in the building. They did a great job with the hymn sing. I'm sitting there in about the third row. Gerald looks right down at me, and he starts saying, in the 70s, one of the great quartets that I really loved was the Kingsmen. They had a great piano player named Nick Bruno. And Nick is here with us tonight. And so he points down at me. He says, Nick, I'm on the board. And he said, Mark Trammell's here, he's on the board. Jim Brady's here tonight, he's on the board. And we just wanted to let you know officially, in front of all these people, the board of the Hall of Fame, that you're going in the Hall of Fame. Wow. You could have knocked me over with a feather, man. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. They were standing up, clapping. I don't know what happened from that. I was numb, But it's a great honor.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, Brother Nick, I've read your books, I've watched your videos. You're a mentor to so many people. And on behalf of me and all the people that you mentor and everybody watching, we honor you. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you today that we could come and honor you as a legend.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to me to know that that moment in Town Hall in Philadelphia led to this.
Yes, sir.
God is a great God.
That's right. Yes, sir. Well, how about this? Why don't we go to your office over here, and only if you want to, I would love to sing Beulah Land. I'd love for you to play if that's okay with you. You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm kind of homesick for a country to which I've never been before. No sad goodbye will there be spoken, for time won't matter anymore. Beulah Land, I'm longing for you, and someday only I'll stand there. My home shall be eternal. Beulah Land, sweet Beulah Land. Oh, I'm looking now across the river to where my faith shall wind inside. There's just a few more days to labor, then I will take my heavenly flight. Beulah Land, I'm longing for you, and someday only I stand there. My home shall be eternal. Beulah Land, sweet Beulah Land. Beulah Land, Beulah Land. Well, Beulah Land, sweet Beulah Land. And Brother Nick, tell us about some of these pictures up here.
Well, there's a lot of pictures, aren't there?
Quite.
I couldn't keep a job. That's what it was. This is the first group I ever joined right there. That's the Keystone Quartet that I joined right after I was in that concert in Philadelphia.
Right.
And on the top is Bob DiQuattro and his brother Joe next to him. and underneath Bob is his wife, Esther. Above me on there, that's Richard Sturban, Oak Ridge bass singer. This over here is the Keystone Quartet too, up there on the top right. And that's me on the bottom, and up on the left is Richard Sturban again, and above him is Joe Bonsall. Both of those are in the Oak Ridge Boys.
Yes, sir.
And Ron Kelly, beside him, sang tenor. Eventually, Ron left the group, and we made Joe the tenor, and David Will joined us. David had a long career with the Imperials.
Yes, sir. That's
So
right.
that was good. And after the Keystones, I joined the Rebels. Unfortunately, I don't have a good picture of the Rebels here. But then I went from the Rebels over there to Coy Cook and the Senators. I went to J.D. Sumner and the Stamps.
Stamps. Yes, sir.
And
There's Elvis right there.
there he is, the Big E.
You.
This is Bill Bays, and then there's Richard Sturban again. And then Donnie Sumner, Elvis, J.D. Sumner, Ed Enoch, and me.
That's a lot of legends in one picture. Yes,
Kings,
sir.
this was the Kingsmen. This is where I wound up eventually. And then I went into producing. But the one thing I want to make clear, all of this that you see is all because of His anointing. And it's all because of God. And we be sure and give Him all the honor and glory and praise.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Hey everybody, my name is Tate Emmons, and thank you for watching this episode of Legends, a series where we honor the generations that came before us and paved the way. But I'd like to speak about a generation who has not had the chance to pave their way. A generation stolen, sold, and abused. Over 1 million children have been abducted and are being used for sexual exploitation and slavery. Just as young as 18 months old, but on average, just 15 years old. That's my age. It's a $99 billion industry generated by stolen children each year. It's a tragic epidemic that can no longer be ignored or overlooked. Over 1 million children's voices have been silenced. But today, I will be their voice. The voice of my generation. I will make the appeal of hope and rescue. Destiny's Rescue is an organization missioned to rescue kids from human trafficking, to set them free and keep them free. Today we are announcing a partnership with Destiny's Rescue and Tate Emmons Ministries, and we're asking you to partner with us. For a monthly commitment only $40 or any gift that you can give, you will become actively in the fight to save these children's lives. And as of our way of saying thank you, I'll send you my debut album, Means Something to Me, along with Christmas with Tate, as our gift to you. By following the QR code at the bottom of the screen or going to TateEmmons.com, you can become an official partner. A partner to save a stolen generation whose voices have been silenced. Let's be their voice. Let's stand in the gap for my generation.